Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. And I want to hit a reminder for you to hit the subscribe button, whatever way you are listening or watching the Mile High Podcast, and also to hit the register button to join us on Higher Ground in September. RiseUpToMileHigh.com is where you can get the 411 on Mile High live in September in Denver, which is where you want to be. Today, I am so thrilled to have at Mile High Trent Scheidecker and have him with us on the podcast. He's one of my favorite people in chiropractic because of his area of focus in terms of philosophy, science, and art. And he just really lifts that up really high in terms of his practices, operating the Chiro Way offices, and really in his heart and what he teaches through advanced muscle palpation, also known as AMP. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Trent.
Thank you for having me, Danny. I am beyond excited to be at Mile High in a short amount of time. It has become my new annual most favorite traditional trip of the year. And I'm not saying that just to boast a little bit. I love what you're doing. I love the concept of bringing a large body of chiropractors with different arts, similar philosophy, and a building understanding of the science together so that we can now walk out of there with just motivation. That's not the point of coming together. The point of coming together is to walk out of there with more solid ground on what we do and what we don't need to be doing to serving our community. So, man, am I excited to be there. And let's dive in. Wherever you want to take this conversation, I'm all ears.
Well, I really appreciate starting out with what you just said, because I'd be remiss to not respond. But I really appreciate you notice from attending what it's about and picking that up, like through osmosis of being there, and really to have a home in the center of the country where people can grow and be strengthened in our principles, values, and their team as well. So I'm glad we're hitting the mission there with Mile High 11. We're going to turn up the tick just a bit one louder. Now, I got to say, you're one person who impressively have turned up the tick for so many people, both through your practices and the Chiro Way offices. You have 10 Chiro Way centers, which is amazing. And I know what you have the team focused on of your doctors, and that's definitely turning it up. I know you're not stopping there. And then on top of that, advanced muscle palpation, teaching infant and child chiropractic, and really helping people, do all that. So let's dial it back to where that began. Like, how did you find your way, first off, into the chiropractic world?
I get goosebumps when you ask that question. I'm going to try to keep this short and to the point because we could sit here all day talking about the journey and the path that I've been on. Like we discussed before we hit record, I am only 13 years into the profession. I plan on being around for a long time, no matter what the path brings in the future. But in my pre-chiropractic journey, it was just a simple story of being introduced to a chiropractor because my quality of life was not optimal at the age that I was living. I noticed a big impact on performance, attention, academics. Danny, I started hanging around with different people. I think the concept of chiropractic and its potential and performance and quality of life improvement dynamics need to be the center and focus of our conversations when we come together as a group. It's what brought me into the profession. As I picked my school based off of geography, it wasn't a short amount of time before Reggie Gold was speaking at our campus on the letter N. I never heard of Reggie. I never heard the letter N story before. And as soon as I heard the concept of biochemistry, neurology, and this objective focus on the location, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation for the better expression of all mankind, womankind, childkind, I was sold. I went out and spent some time with Reggie. Reggie introduced me to the right people that became my lifetime mentors. They still are. I study them. I revert back to what they have done for us as a profession, and it needs to be part of our conversation today. Because if you don't have a mentor and you're not studying from your mentors that have paved the path per se on failures and experiences and just time together. I mean, I learned more and I call it the weekend at Reggie's, similar to the weekend at Bernie's. I learned more in those 2 days at the weekend at Reggie's than what many can learn in a lifetime of studying his audios, because there's something powerful about being together, and that's what you're doing with this group, that brings more energy and more certainty in what we're sharing. So that got me down the rabbit hole of practicing chiropractic, and I hit the ground running. Fast forward 13 years, we actually have 16 locations. We just got 6 that haven't opened yet. So we are on a mission at Chiro Way to helping more students, more chiropractors. If you're associating and you just need a little guidance, regardless of where you are, even if you're a practicing chiropractor and you're not happy with where you're at, what we're doing is we're trying really hard to build this unity within our franchise model to give them more certainty to the chiropractor in the entrepreneurship world around one objective, which is the location, analysis, and correction of vertebral subluxation.
Wow, and that's so phenomenal, so phenomenal. The focus, and I got to tell you, I felt so blessed to be at Sherman at a time that Reggie frequently visited the school, and frequently had long conversations with us. And so I know what you're talking about. There's something more about being around people and being in conversation than reading a book, seeing a video, or looking at a post or whatever it is. To be in conversation energetically, to be in their presence, it makes all the difference, in the world. So then, is that where you started to focus on advanced muscle palpation? Was that your impetus?
I dived all in on Nick Spano's manual and mentorship on advanced muscle palpation when I was in practice. I was adamantly trying to build a very high volume practice back in the day, and used my practice to give me more certainty with the listings of subluxation through muscle palpation. And it wasn't a deep burning passion of mine to teach muscle palpation at that time. I was more ingrained on building a practice in the business model and the entrepreneurship world, which we've got very good progress being made right now in our franchise. But what happened was Nick Spano during COVID reached out to me and said, I need a break from teaching. I can't carry on. And I need someone that has the experience and has the passion for chiropractic and advanced muscle palpation to carry it on. Nick asked me to take it over in its complete entirety. And for the past 3 years now, since COVID started, we've been doing research. We need to talk more about research if we have time to dive into that today. We've been doing research at our practice. We've been doing phenomenal amount of mentorship with our interns. We have 2 interns right now. I've had 5 or 6 interns in the last 3 years that I've been teaching this technique to, so that there's more interreliability and confidence. We want the chiropractor not to step into the room having an ounce of doubt. We want the chiropractor stepping into the room, into the analysis, having 100% confidence in what is the objective at hand, and just letting the experience build on that. And with that, we've been going around the country. I just got back from Sherman College of Chiropractic, which is my new second favorite home. I've got a few favorite homes. I love Spartanburg. I love the administration there. I love everyone that you walk in there. The students are the smartest in the country. I apologize if you're a student listening to this from a different campus, but I started speaking muscles, and they were right there. We were doing upper cervical analysis, and they understood the biomechanics. They understood the origins, insertions, They understood the vitalistic components of chiropractic. If any of those words you don't understand any of those words that I'm speaking, you need to continue your investigation into defining those words and defining what chiropractic is, because as I'm currently being mentored on by Dr. Bill Decken, there is this phenomenal concept of where we all need to start is defining that which we're talking about or that which we're doing, because the definition is really the starting point on the journey. And so here I am. I'm going to be diving into advanced muscle palpation with you for I believe the third time. This is the third time that I'll be out there, and I hope it just keeps coming, because it's built some great friendships, some great colleagues that have continued to connect with me after the events. And for anyone that already has a technique, I want to say something, and I say this, and you heard me say this, Danny, when I was speaking at Sherman Lyceum this year.
Right, and you were phenomenal.
Thank you, and I appreciate you sitting through that long presentation. I want you guys all to understand this concept of technique. Technique isn't a one-way highway where it's either my highway or Danny's highway. That is not technique. Technique is the operational approach to providing that which we all have this shared objective on. So there can be more ways to operationally get the job done. In my language, my dad taught me when I was hunting waterfowl up in North Dakota when I was a young age. He said, Trent, there is more than one way to pluck a bird. You can skin a cat in more than one way. But the point of it is what are we trying to accomplish? Where are we going? And how can we learn from the other techniques? How can I learn from what Danny's teaching? How can Danny learn from what I'm teaching? How can you be involved with understanding other techniques and then finding the way that your body and your mind like to operationally perform the chiropractic objective, which is facilitating the adjustment?
So important. And you mentioned all that's so important. And here's the thing, it pains me so much. I see people that learn how to thrust,
but don't
learn an analysis. They learn how to thrust, and their analysis is basically the vertebra that feels stuck rather than something systematically and something going on with the nerve system. And that's pandemic in the profession. So the one thing that I love about advanced muscle palpation, not the one thing, but one of the things, is that you learn, something relative to analyzing before you thrust. And it obviously goes so well with so many other approaches, which is, I'm glad that you said it's, something that regardless of what other technique you've learned, that you'll be able to integrate this. Now, you mentioned a name that many people unfortunately don't know or are not aware of, which is a travesty in my book, but Nick Spano. Can you share a little bit about him and what he taught you, or what his relationship to advanced muscle palpation?
Yeah, and I'll try to keep, again, we could sit here all day. This could be a 2-3 hour conversation. I will try to keep it on point. Nick Spano was a student of Claude Lessard. Claude Lessard was the dean of technique at ADIO. ADIO was a branch off sister school of Sherman College of Chiropractic. Right. If any of this isn't familiar with you and you're listening to this, I challenge you to dive into the history of chiropractic, because the history has led us to where we are now. We need to know what got us to where we are. Pick up any of Simon Senzen's books, Joe Strauss's books. There are some great history-devoted buffs in the profession that can give you more information. Claude Lessard was a student, one of the first students to train under Reggie Gold at Sherman in regards to muscle palpation. Tom Gilardi was the founder and president of Sherman at the time that Reggie and Tom were building up Sherman back in the 60s. Tom Gilardi said, we are only going to perform upper cervical analysis and adjustments because Tom Gilardi was a student and a buff of BJ Palmer. I don't need to go further back from that, but if you see the progress that we made, what happened was Reggie taught Claude that we can analyze below C1 and C2 and still call it chiropractic. And that's called the refinement of the definition. So BJ defined chiropractic as, and one time he defined it as, anything below C2 is not chiropractic. And then what we realized is, well, that's an incomplete definition. So let's really let's refine it so that it's complete in its nature. And when Reggie taught Claude said, this is absolutely perfect in logic. So let's carry it on and teach at ADIO in Pennsylvania. Nick was one of the first students there, and Nick fell in love with it so much that when he graduated, one of the first things he did was he went to Reggie and said, do I have your permission to change the name? Because at the time it was being called vertebrae or an ADIO analysis. And can I carry on and teach this? And Reggie said, have it. I honestly have my plate full and I'm trying to hit home on the philosophy. You take the art and let's change the profession. And so Nick taught for 35 years and he termed it advanced muscle palpation because what he did was he realized, hey, what I was being taught was muscle palpation. There's more to learn. There is a lot more to learn. And so he dove into it. He made a nice little manual of origins and insertions. He talked about the reflex, the working muscle reflex. If none of this is making sense to you, you need to reach out to me because the concept of muscles being a neurological home, that's where the nerves live, Danny, are in the muscles. When I say muscle to a group of students, they all think that we're going to get in there and finesse it and we're going to stretch it and we're going to massage it. Right. Advanced muscle palpation has nothing to do with therapeutically changing the tone of the muscles. It has everything to do with analyzing what innate intelligence is already attempting to self-correct and seeing where innate intelligence needs an extra introduction of force, which I would like to spend just a minute on. So Nick Spano went out and taught palpation and analysis for 35 years. And now I'm here, and where I am refining Nick's technique is and teachings is the concept that advanced muscle palpation actually has a component of facilitating the adjustment as well, because for the past 10 years, I've accumulated over 1 million chiropractic adjustments. And during my busy times, I realized that thrusting hurts the body. When we do this all day on people and we bounce that force back into our body, that hurts us. And it potentially can hurt our clients or patients or practice members in the same fashion. And so for the past, I would say 7 years, I've been monitoring how I facilitate the adjustment in regards to the analysis portion. And I've come to the conclusion, Danny, that we shouldn't be pushing force into the spine. We should be pulling force out of the spine. Different conversation for a different day, but very similar to network analysis when we're talking energy and we're talking force and we're talking about how to focus our force in regards to providing the most gentle and specific chiropractic adjustment possible. And so I spend my time when I'm working with my clients pulling on the tissue that's already actively attempting to pull that spinous process back into a more balanced state of condition.
You know, you said a lot of important things in there that we're going to delve deeper in. And it really is the aspect of who's making the adjustment, which is not you and not I, but innate. And there's so much often people thinking they're using, applying a force to fix the spine as compared to applying a force to have the body assemble its own forces to make a change, that you're cueing the body in some way, whatever approach you're using. Now, you said an important word, which is therapeutic, when you're talking about muscles, right? And so chiropractic is, in its original intent, not intended to be therapeutic. Can you share more about that, of therapeutic versus non-therapeutic approaches?
Yeah, we talked about this last weekend in Sherman's ACP program. For those that want more principle, more philosophy, and learning how to be a better writer, we need more writers in the profession. If you haven't read my book yet, now would be a perfect time for me to plug. I've got a very content heavy but easy read book called The Adjustment Advantage, which talks all about how the single objective of chiropractic is not to therapeutically remove a symptom from the body or remove a state of disease label that has been pinned on this population. We need to define chiropractic's paradigm around the concept that there's this entity and non-entity in this world that we live in. And when people have lost the entity of health or life, let's call it life, because in this book, and I brought this book out here today because I wanted to bring Principle One into it, and I know it, but I don't know it word for word, which I will continue to memorize so that we can become more advocates of the principle. But in this book, we learn that chiropractic is about life expression. Well, what is life? Reggie talked about life being a triunity of intelligence, force, and matter. Well, what is that? Dive deep into the principles, and you'll soon realize that life is the entity, folks. And the entity is like where I'm sitting out here in the sun. It's the heat. It's the real. But when I move into my air-conditioned home and I'm in that home where it's cold is the non-entity, and it has no aspect for us to focus on, because really all we're doing is we're removing the heat from the home, and now we've got the cold. And so when we talk therapeutic or non-therapeutic or objective straight chiropractic or objective chiropractic, what our leaders of the profession like Reggie and Joe Strauss and Claude Lessard is still doing is talking, and Tom Gilardi has done it for the past X amount of years at Sherman. They're talking about this concept that we need to focus on what's here and then what's missing by removing any interference to that natural connection, to allowing that to be there. Now, that may sound like a lot, and it may sound like linguistics, but linguistics is an important thing, because if I started calling you Rochelle, you would look at me and say, I'm not Rochelle, I'm Danny. And we would say, oh, yeah, I called you by the wrong name, so I'm not referring to you, I'm referring to someone else. Let's refer to what we're doing as chiropractors so we can do a better job of teaching our communities what chiropractic is and what it isn't, because right now, people don't understand that chiropractic has anything to do with the expression of more life, the expression of performance, the expression of the body's innate intelligence, because we haven't done a proper job of communicating our communities on that, because we don't even understand it, because we stopped at the academic level.
Yeah. So important to even just have the right words, for sure, relative to what we do. And that's also confuses a lot of patients, when they are seeking chiropractic care and thinking that they're a patient versus a practice member, for example, using the terms that make sense to, that the people that are seeing you can understand what you're doing, and they don't mix you up with a medical professional, is vital. And it's sad that people don't learn that more along the way in chiropractic school, so that they are not going into being a pseudo medical doctor, or they're becoming a glorified physical therapist. So now, you mentioned the ACP program. You just started that. With all that you're doing, with already teaching an analysis program and then running 16 offices or coordinating it, why did you want to put more on the plate? What inspired you to say, well, you already have, you could say most likely you probably receive enough, why would you, in terms, you're probably doing okay, right? So like, why do you have to add this additional certification or education?
Yeah, I shared a few quotes with you before this recording started. And one of the quotes that I shared with you, Danny, was by Jim Carrey. If no one has seen a Jim Carrey movie, they're missing out because I grew up in the
You're missing
90s.
out on life.
They're missing out on life. Jim Carrey taught me how to laugh and how to take life not so serious through his movies. And Jim Carrey became, without a doubt, one of the most successful comedians in the 90s. And he made a lot of money. And he's got a cool story about how he visualized that money coming into fruition. And when he got it, and when he reached the status of where he was visualizing, he realized that wasn't the goal. He goes,
Right.
and he made the quote, he said, listen, you can have all the money and all the success in the world, and everyone can know your name. You can have it all, and you're still going to be missing something. And then he relates it back to being the focus, and the focus that we need to remember as a profession is our impact on people. And so you ask me, why am I doing this ACP? Why am I doing advanced muscle palpation? Why do I have 16 offices and growing? It's because I have this goal where I want to impact a lot of people with what impacted my life. And I can't do that physically myself. I can't do it with my two hands. And so my approach is the distribution model.
Right.
Distribution model is either a corporate or franchise. But for us as a profession, distribution means we need to come together and we need to solidify the systematic approach of delivering the chiropractic adjustment. And how I am taking that approach is through this concept of one of my favorite mentors, Jim Maxwell, and another one is Jim Rohn. I can only lead my tribe. I can only lead my people as far as I can physically grow myself. And so if I have a chiropractor or a student and they say, hey, Trent, I'm not making it in practice. I'm about to close my doors and I'm about to go buy into, let's just say, a franchise in a different profession to make money so I can provide support for my family. But you're my last hope. I'm going to say, hey, let's start at the basics. Let's start with defining what we're doing here. Let's talk about the philosophy. Let's talk about the science. Let's talk about the art. Because when you get to that opportunity to analyze someone's spine, I want you to know it all before the adjustment even takes place, so that there is something special that happens. And BJ has a quote for it, and I don't remember what it is, but it's that something special that occurs right before the adjustment and right after the adjustment. I mean, I had someone get adjusted yesterday, Danny, and I've been doing this for 13 plus years, seen a lot of people, and it was so special. And she looked at me and she said the funniest thing I have ever heard, but it was the most flattering comment. I'm not going to say it because this is being recorded. The point of it is we need to spend more time becoming masters of the trade. And so my passion is I want to give it all away, and I want to teach, and I want to mentor, and I want my team to be the best in the business. So it's not just about an affordable care plan. I have an affordable care plan at my practice, and a lot of my colleagues in the community or even in the profession think, oh, he's just doing what he's got 16 offices because he's doing it so cheap, is what they say. No, the affordability is a retention approach. Actually, I've had clients that have been with me for 13 years, and so my case management fee is actually 10 times what the average chiropractic case management fee is, because I've got 10 times the retention on how long someone is coming in and how frequent they come in and see me. So if we spend more time talking and growing our mindset on the way we look at things, and this is another favorite mentor of mine, which is Dr. Wayne Dyer. He said, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. I'm trying to change the way I look at things. Like, I just sat through the ACP weekend seminar just a couple of days ago and realized within the 33 principles, There are over 10 principles that relate specifically to people's deviation away from normal. And so we need to grow as a profession, talking and managing people's label of deviated normal. So I think where we can grow as a profession is we step up and we continue to speak in the terms that we know are ours. But we also live in a world of dichotomy where we have to meet people where they're at. And when they say, hey, I've got severe arthritis, what can you do for me, doc? We can look at them with love and compassion and say, hey, you know, not that arthritis isn't real, because it is real. And not that I'm going to not pay attention to the fact that you have arthritis, because we need to be able to introduce the right force into your spine. But let's talk chiropractic, and let's talk about what chiropractic can do and transcend your state of condition. And transcendentalism is this new word that I'm hooked on since I've started ACP, because that's where D.D. Palmer really built our profession, is around the great mentors like Henry David Thoreau, and you know, the concept that there's this inner greater good in the human body, and this inner greater good in nature. I'm sitting outside right now because that is universal intelligence. That's our principle. That's our foundation of what we're built on. And all of that is what I'm learning right now in great depth at ACP. So kudos to Dr. Decken for all he's doing in the administration for carrying that program on.
You know, and I asked that question because a lot of times people only enroll in something when they're lacking. So they'll say, you know what, I'm, and it's sad. They'll go, chiropractors do this, that they'll say, well, I'll take this certification because I'm really failing in practice. So I've got to learn more. So I'll take an ACP class or an ICPA certification or something like that, or maybe AMP or whatever. They tend to do it from a place of lack rather than what they're going to gain. And they're already abundant, they're already successful, and they want to give on a higher level, which you so, you know, eloquently just described. And it's really becomes an allopathic way of thinking when you go to an event, like saying, I want to go to Mile High because maybe will fix my practice or fix me. That's not, you know, that's an, you know, an outside in kind of thinking relative to your life, versus that I want to, you know, up level where I am and gain more of what I want to do. You know, I want to go, I'm already a great chiropractor. I want to be even more, you know, even more stellar chiropractor by learning what's got to be, you know, what I can learn at AMP. You know, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, we talked about that this weekend, and that's called our worldview. And I would start there. If you're a student, and even if you're a chiropractor, write down this word and study it and realize there are a few things that you could really grow upon as a chiropractor and take a whole different path in practice, a whole different path in your quality of life and abundance. That is your worldview. What is your worldview? Your worldview is just like it sounds. It's circular, and it has a lot of different components in it. Chiropractic or health would be one component, but not only that, the concept of abundance and the concept of growth and the concept of time management. Where are you putting your time right now? Are you listening to the content that's being delivered by Danny? Are you mentoring with other chiropractors to train you on technique? You know, 3 years ago, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to teach chiropractors across the country on this technique through recorded video. I guarantee I can impact hundreds of chiropractors by having a learning management system of just recording me. I've got over 14 recorded events that I've got on file, and I got less than 14 chiropractors subscribed to training with that content. Why? Because of the worldview, because most chiropractors show up every day and say, this is the way I've done it, and this is the way I'm going to do it. And then they go home and they talk to their wife, or they go to their business coach and they say, yeah, I'm not growing. My practice isn't growing. My income's not growing. This isn't changing. This isn't changing. That's because your worldview is you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result. And Einstein said that's the case, or that's the pure definition of crazy. That is craziness if you expect to see something different by doing the same thing. So let's focus on showing up to Mile High and learning something that you've never learned before. If you're a network analysis doc, come to my training. Don't go to Danny's because you're getting it all the time. And if you're a therapeutic chiropractor and you've been treating neck pain, back pain, headaches, you name it, which I'm not downgrading. I have nothing against the chiropractor that does it, because some world viewpoints out there, the common population, that's where they're at. That's what they need, is they need an allopathic model, and they're not ready to take on our worldview of ADIO. They don't understand an above down, inside out approach to or this transcendentalism of transcending their current state of condition for a higher quality living, based on the concept that where we are now does not need to be where we are tomorrow, because we're all connected to this universal intelligence and have an innate component of that universal intelligence within us that can transcend our current state of condition by changing our approach and doing something different today that we didn't do yesterday.
Right. And that's where when I hire people in my office, one of the things I look for is, and I tell them this in the interview process, your core values you're going to love this job if your core value is one of growth and contribution. If you're wired for growth and contribution, if growth and contribution aren't something that are important to you, you're not going to be happy working for us, because that's what's going to happen to you. And that's what you're going to see all day. And the same thing, what you just described, is someone, focusing on growth and contribution, and they've got to be wanting to grow and, contribute to people's lives. If you want to be growing, you're going to go to something like the ACP, right? Or AMP, or an AMP doctor to say, you know what, I'm going to take a network program because I have no knowledge about that, or vice versa. But that's how you grow, have the constant and never ending improvement through your chiropractic career, right?
And that's in this book, and R.W. Stevenson talks so eloquently about it in Principle 33, not supply and demand, folks, demand and supply. And I want to make sure I said that right, because that gets confused often in our profession and often in the world. It is the law of demand and supply, not supply and demand, folks. So if you are in short supply in practice, you're in short supply of time as a student, you're in short supply in life, your worldview needs to change to increasing a demand so that the supply becomes easier giving. That's the way it works. Is right now I'm outside and it's windy, and the concept of deconstructive strength is built in the root system of trees. When the wind blows against the trees and it pushes really hard and there's constant force, guess what happens? The tree becomes stronger. It builds deeper roots. Those roots spread out. They don't stay at that surface level. If your roots are not strong enough, it's because you're not putting enough demand on your life. And so when Danny said, why are you doing all this? That's because I'm trying to push my demand into the point where I break down. I want to break down. Like my wife looked at me a couple of weeks ago and said, I think you should run the marathon with me. She's been training for it for a year. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I have time. I don't know if I've got the energy. And she's like, well, just come run the half marathon. Let's see what you can do. So I run the half marathon with her. It was awesome. I'm like, this is great. Yeah, my endorphins are high. And then she goes, why don't you come do the full with me? And I look at her and I say, deal. I'll do it only, and not saying that I'm going to finish because I haven't gotten to that start line yet, but I'll do it just to put that demand on my physiology to make myself stronger, so that mentally, physically, I can be a better servant, a better contributor to our profession, to my family, you name it. So now it's waking up at 4 instead of 4:30 like I've been doing for the last 6 months, because now I gotta get my meditation, I gotta get my reading, I gotta get my my time alone before I go out and I run those. Like tomorrow I'm going to run 15 miles. That takes over 2 hours. I'm going to devote 2 hours to physically putting demand on my body before I even get out there putting demand on my body in my work environment, in my community environment. And I'm saying all this not because people need to run up and sign up for marathons. I'm saying this because transcendentalism is this concept that we need to keep pushing ourselves, and we need to teach our population. We need to teach our communities that growth is there. It's available for everyone, folks, and it's real. And chiropractic works 100% of the time. The only time it doesn't work is when we're not applying it in its chiropractic principle.
And we have to ask this. So what time do you go to sleep?
Typically I'm in bed by 9 and I'll fall asleep by 9:30. 10 is my cutoff. I slept in this morning because today is my rest day before my long day. And so I received another hour or two of sleep today. So I'll catch up on sleep. I don't look at sleep in a 24-hour cycle. I look at sleep in a week cycle. So if I like my Mondays, I'll get 6, maybe 7 hours of sleep. Tuesday, 6 hours of sleep. Wednesday, I'll get a few extra. And then I'll build up at the end of the week and I'll get some extra. But when I slept in today, I woke up and I felt like crap. My body wasn't moving enough, and I wasn't up getting my meditation. I wasn't doing what makes me feel alive. And so it's a fact that and I'm not about making this, I'm all about a routine and doing the right things. It's a fact, Danny, that all the millionaires in the world wake up before 5 a.m.
Yeah, they
and
all
so
do.
if you're not waking up before 5 and you're going home and you're complaining to your wife, or you're a female in this profession and you're complaining to your husband that you don't have enough time to be with the kids and be in practice, you're not getting up early enough. I guarantee you.
Yeah. I mean, I've done everything I've done by my wake up time being between 4 and 5, usually 4 to 4:30. And, it's just a fact. So to impact more. So, and it's funny, this is how much you and I are in the same zone. So I have to tell you, last thing I'd like to ask you is this. And we are so thrilled to have you at Mile High. If this hasn't jazzed you to at least to get to Mile High, riseuptomilehigh.com is where you can get your seats. I certainly hope it jazzes you to connect more with Dr. Trent Scheidecker and one of the advanced muscle palpation programs. What will you be sharing in your breakout session?
Well, I am going back and forth between upper cervical or lumbosacral. I would like to hone in. How much time are you giving me? Let me call you out on this. What am I getting? I got an hour.
Minutes. Right. Breakouts of 50 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask for a little bit more. So if you can put me at that right slot where I get like an hour and a half, that would be ideal. And if that can be right before lunchtime, so then you guys just bring your lunch with you. Let's spend an hour and a half diving deep into a region of the spine that is complex. So there's 2 complex regions of the spine. I think the middle of the spine is really kind of like the bow of the guitar, the middle of the guitar. A lot of that in the middle changes based off of what we're doing at the tips and the toes. And the tips and the toes, I'm talking upper cervical and lumbosacral. Not that the thoracic's not important, don't get me wrong, folks, but when it comes to analyzing and assessing the biomechanics and the physiology and the neurology of where that subluxation is specifically putting interference on the mental impulses of the body, we need to understand how that sacral nutation, counter nutation, and the pelvis correlates with it. We need to understand the concept of convex and concave, and how that atlas and occiput work together. Look at this. We've got this interdependent relationship up top. We've got this interdependent relationship down low. We need to understand those relationships, and we need to understand it. How can we analyze in a tonal component? You and I speak the same language, Danny, talking tone. If you don't know what tone is, look it up, write it down, spend some time looking at tone, because D.D. Palmer, that was one of the first words he used in our profession was tone, and he talked about it from a neuroskeletal approach. He did not look at the skeleton as a structural support system. He looked at it from a tensegrity approach. Tensegrity is another term. If you don't have it, study it before you come to our breakout session. Tensegrity is tension plus integrity equals function. Function is quality life, folks. It is the expression of life, and we need to study that triunity of tension plus integrity equals performance. And we need to understand how the spine is a float-in fulcrum point and how we can influence biomechanical change through a change in tension. Danny does it in network. I do it by pulling my tissue. I do it by compressing the tissue. And it changes so many of the internal components without thrusting or forcing something to occur. We don't want to thrust. We don't want to manipulate. We want to facilitate. We don't want to thrust. We don't want to manipulate. We want to facilitate. I'm constantly trying to find new T-shirt slogans, and that's a good one if you want to join me on that. And we will be diving deep into one of the two, maybe two, if Danny says, all right, Trent, I heard you, you get an hour and a half. I will dive in and give you guys as much as I possibly can. I typically charge around $250 for a 3-hour breakout session like this. And so you're getting, if you come to my workshop, you're getting the price of whatever you're paying Danny for plus some. So you guys need to understand the concept of a value add, and the value he's giving you in this registration is phenomenal. The amount of brains, the amount of people, the network that he's building, it's worth every penny. So if you haven't hit submit yet, hit submit. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Advanced Muscle Palpation. You can find my name is Trent Scheidecker, DC. You can find our brand ChiroWay Chiropractic. What else do I have out there? Our podcast, my podcast that I have on top of everything else I got going on is called Today's Tick, TIC. Tick is the differentiator of whether or not you're practicing a therapeutic approach compared to an above down inside out approach in my two cents. So I've the resources there. Reach out to me if you have any questions. What else do you need from me, Danny?
That's perfect. And we will put all those links in the liner notes, the blog note that goes along with this. You know, I just want to thank you for being such a beacon for chiropractic in a world where a lot of chiropractic is not shedding as much light, to be someone who's shedding light. And that's how we change things, as you just talked about, dark and light, is that we bring more light to the darkness rather than the other way around. So I want to thank you so much for being at Mile High, and for actually, you know, even more so than being at Mile High, just being so impactful to the chiropractic profession in a way that's coherent and congruent with our foundational values and principles. It's beautiful to watch and inspiring, and I'm grateful for. I was going to say chiropractors like you, but there's no chiropractor like you. So
well, I appreciate that, and I'm standing on the shoulders of great people. You're one of them. You've been in this profession longer than I have. You've been leading longer than I have, and what you're doing with this event is inspiration for me to continue to perfect my public speaking skills. I want to come back next year. I'm saying this on video because I want you to hear this, that my ability to influence and motivate and encourage those that just need an ounce more of that opportunity to transcend their current state of reality is only available by being at events like this. So I appreciate you. If you're hearing this and we haven't met yet, please come introduce yourself and let's connect, because to me, there's a brotherhood within this profession, and we need to grow that. There's a sisterhood in this profession, and that needs to be developed, and we need to protect one another. Because I want to say one thing, Danny, and I know that you and I have this shared approach. There needs to be more civil disobedience within this profession, and I say it with respect, by not breaking the law, but by bending the rules so that we can continue to grow our unit, our profession in a unified area. So right now, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. There's a lot of, you can do this, you can't do that. Let's come together and let's unite as a profession, shed love and light on it, and let's come together and have a great Mile High 11. Let's
We
turn
look
it up.
forward to seeing you there. We look forward to seeing everyone there. I hope to meet, more people from your area and from Cairo way. And, I really love the community and connection. So thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for watching, listening, and make sure you rise up. You want to rise up to milehigh.com and definitely check out everything that Dr. Scheidecker was sharing. And we look forward to seeing everybody in September. Keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.